The soft evening light poured through the studio windows, bathing the set in a warm, golden glow. Sandra Bullock sat quietly near the corner, her script resting on her lap, unread for the last few minutes. Across the room, Keanu Reeves adjusted his gloves, his eyes calm yet distant, as if carrying the weight of something unspoken. The director called for a short break. Everyone laughed, chatted, and scrolled through their phones, but Keanu stayed silent. He looked at Sandra just once, then turned away. The moment lasted only a second, but it carried a depth that no one else noticed. Sandra felt it too, the quiet heaviness behind his calm expression. Years of friendship had built between them, born from respect and quiet understanding. They had worked together, supported each other, and yet there were parts of Keanu's heart he never let anyone reach. Sandra had seen glimpses of it, the loneliness behind his smile, the distance in his kindness. She never asked questions, only offered presence. That day, something about him felt different. His smile was slower, his eyes softer. Between scenes, she walked up to him, pretending to adjust her costume. "You okay?" she asked quietly. Keanu nodded, his eyes still focused on the floor. "Yeah, just thinking." "About what?" she asked. He looked up, and for a moment everything around them faded. "About what really matters," he said simply. The simplicity of his answer carried a strange weight. Sandra didn't press further. She knew him well enough to recognize when silence spoke louder than words. Something had changed in Keanu's world, but she didn't know what. That night, as filming ended, Sandra noticed Keanu walking alone toward his motorcycle. The wind played with his hair, and his black jacket swayed as he paused near the gate. He looked back at the empty set for a few seconds, as if saying goodbye to something invisible. She wanted to call his name, but something stopped her. Maybe it was the look in his eyes, peaceful yet filled with quiet sorrow. The kind that said he was carrying a memory too personal to share. The next morning, the news reached the set before Keanu did. An old friend of his, someone who had supported him in his early days, had passed away after a long illness. No one knew how close they were, but Sandra saw the pain in his stillness when he finally arrived. No tears, no words, just calm silence. During lunch, she found him sitting near the edge of the lot, away from everyone. A small paper cup of coffee rested between his hands. She sat beside him without speaking. Minutes passed before he finally whispered, "He helped me when no one else did." He never wanted credit. He just believed. Sandra turned slightly. "That's rare," she said. "Yeah," Keanu replied softly. "And I never told him how much that meant." A deep silence filled the air again. Sandra's eyes softened, her voice steady. "Then do something now. Something that honors him. Something that says what words couldn't." Keanu looked at her, surprised by her quiet strength. He nodded slowly, as if a decision had just been made inside him. That night, he disappeared from the set without telling anyone where he was going. 2 days later, he returned, calmer, lighter, with a small folded paper tucked into his pocket. Sandra noticed it when he placed his jacket on a chair. She didn't ask about it, but curiosity lingered in her mind. There was something about the way he looked at that paper, like it carried more than ink, maybe a promise, maybe a farewell. Later, during the next scene, the camera rolled, and for a brief moment between action and cut, Keanu looked at Sandra again. That same silence returned, deep, knowing, full of meaning. It wasn't romantic or dramatic. It was human. A silent exchange between two souls who understood that pain and kindness often walked hand in hand. That night, as the studio emptied, Sandra stayed behind. She found a small envelope under her chair. No name, no address, just her name written in neat handwriting. Inside was a short note. "Sometimes silence is the loudest thank you." Her heart trembled as she read it. She knew it was from him, but what she didn't know was where Keanu had gone that night, or what he had promised to do. And soon, that secret would change both of their lives in ways no one could predict. The night was unusually quiet when Keanu Reeves parked his motorcycle near a small wooden cabin outside the city. The place looked peaceful, surrounded by tall pines and soft mist rolling over the ground. It was the home of the man who had once changed his life. his mentor, Michael Hale. Keanu stepped closer to the door, holding a small white flower in his hand. The porch light flickered faintly, and through the window he could see framed pictures of old movie posters, faded letters, and one photograph of the two of them together. Michael's smile in that photo still carried warmth and pride. Keanu whispered softly, "Thank you, old friend." He placed the flower on the porch railing and took out the folded paper from his pocket. On it were Michael's last words, words sent to him through a nurse just before he passed. Never stop being kind, even when no one notices. That night, Keanu made a quiet promise under the stars. He decided he would create something in Michael's name, something that would continue helping people quietly, just like his mentor did. The next morning, back on the film set, Sandra Bullock noticed the calm in his eyes. There was grief, yes, but also peace. He had found purpose in his pain. "You went somewhere," she said as she walked beside him to the makeup room. "Yeah," he replied, smiling faintly. "To say goodbye and to begin something new." She looked at him curiously. "Something new?" Keanu only said, "You'll see." Days passed, and filming continued. Between takes, Keanu made quiet calls, visited small offices, and spoke to people no one else paid attention to, assistants, technicians, and extras. Sandra observed him carefully. He was always polite before, but now there was something deeper. He made time to listen to their stories, help with small problems, and share meals with the crew who usually ate alone. One afternoon, Sandra found him sitting with a young lighting technician who had just lost his father. She overheard Keanu saying, "Grief doesn't go away, but kindness helps carry it." The boy smiled weakly, and Sandra felt something shift inside her. Later that week, she confronted him with a gentle smile. "You're doing something, aren't you?" Keanu laughed quietly. "Maybe. It's small, but it feels right." "You're building something for Michael," she said, almost certain. He looked at her, surprised, then nodded. "Yeah, I'm setting up a fund to help crew members in crisis. Michael always said no one should face loss alone." Sandra's eyes softened. "You're turning pain into purpose." "It's the only way I know how," he said. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sandra sat near her trailer window, thinking about Keanu's words. She remembered her own moments of silence, the times when fame felt heavy and loneliness louder than applause. She realized how much his quiet strength had influenced her over the years. The next day, she made a decision. She contacted her manager and asked to donate anonymously to Keanu's project. She didn't tell him. She didn't need to, but soon something unexpected happened. A journalist overheard part of Keanu's conversation with the Foundation's team and leaked it online. Within hours, social media was full of headlines. Keanu Reeves funds secret charity for film crew families. The set buzzed with noise. Everyone talked about his generosity, but Keanu was nowhere to be found. Sandra searched for him until she finally found him behind the soundstage, leaning against a wall, staring at the ground. "You didn't want this out, did you?" she asked softly. "No," he said. "It wasn't supposed to be about me." "But people deserve to know goodness still exists," she replied. He looked at her, a quiet smile forming. "Maybe, but sometimes real kindness needs no witness." She felt a chill, not from the air, but from the truth in his voice. As they stood there in silence, the director called everyone back for the next scene. Keanu turned to walk away, but before leaving, he said something that would echo in her mind for a long time. "The world claps for noise, Sandra." I'd rather whisper hope. That night, she couldn't sleep. His words kept circling her heart. There was something hidden in his silence, a secret deeper than just grief or humility. She felt he was carrying another story, one he wasn't ready to share yet. And soon, that secret would find its way into the light, changing everything she thought she knew about him. The next few weeks moved quietly. Yet something about Keanu Reeves felt different. He was still kind, still gentle, but there was a strange distance in his eyes. Sandra Bullock noticed it every day. He smiled at everyone, but it was never the same smile. Something deep inside him was fading, slowly, quietly, like a candle losing its last flame. One afternoon, filming stopped early because of heavy rain. Most of the crew rushed inside, laughing as they covered themselves with jackets. But Keanu stayed outside, standing under the rain, eyes lifted toward the sky. His clothes were soaked, his hair clung to his face, yet he looked peaceful, like the storm outside matched the one inside him. Sandra watched him from the doorway. She wanted to step out, to hand him an umbrella, to ask what he was hiding, but something told her not to interrupt. She waited until he finally turned around and smiled faintly. "You'll catch a cold," she said, walking closer. "Maybe I need it," he replied softly. She frowned. "Why would you say that?" He hesitated for a moment, then whispered, "To remember what being alive feels like." That line stayed in her heart like a quiet wound. A few days later, the crew planned a small dinner to celebrate the halfway mark of the shoot. Laughter filled the restaurant. Lights flickered softly and cameras clicked everywhere. But Sandra noticed Keanu sitting in the corner talking to the restaurant manager away from the crowd. When she approached, she overheard him offering to pay for the meals of a few staff members working double shifts. The manager looked shocked. Keanu simply said, "No one needs to know." When he saw her, he smiled again, that same calm, distant smile. "You caught me again," he joked. She laughed softly. "You make it too easy." But deep inside, she knew there was more to his sudden kindness. It wasn't just gratitude or humility. It was almost like he was trying to finish something, to leave behind traces of good before time ran out. The next morning, Sandra found a letter slipped under her trailer door. No name, no signature, just a single line written in neat handwriting. "Some goodbyes are not said in words." Her chest tightened. She ran out to find Keanu, but his motorcycle was gone. The director told her he had left for a few days, saying it was a personal emergency. No one knew where he went. For 2 days, there was no call, no message. She couldn't focus on her lines. Every sound reminded her of his calm voice. Every quiet corner felt empty without his presence. On the 3rd day, he returned, tired, pale, but smiling. When she asked where he went, he simply said, "Just somewhere I needed to be." That night, during a late scene, something unusual happened. In one emotional take, Keanu broke down completely, tears falling, voice trembling, unable to continue. The director called cut, but he stayed still, breathing heavily, his eyes lost in another world. Sandra rushed to him holding his hand. "What's happening, Keanu?" she whispered. He looked at her, his lips trembling. "There's something I didn't tell you." She froze. "What is it?" He hesitated, his eyes glistening. "Michael's illness. Wasn't the only one I've been around." Her breath caught in her throat. "What do you mean?" But before he could answer, the director's voice called for a retake. Keanu stood up, nodded, and whispered, "Not here." The rest of the night passed in silence. Sandra couldn't concentrate. Every time she looked at him, she saw the truth fighting to escape his calm face. After filming ended, she followed him to the parking lot. "Keanu, please," she said softly. "What are you hiding?" He turned slowly, his eyes gentle yet filled with exhaustion. "Promise you won't look at me differently." "I can't promise that," she replied. "But I can promise I'll listen." He looked at her for a long moment, then finally spoke. "A few months ago, I was diagnosed with something. It's early, but it's real." Sandra's voice trembled. "What are you saying?" "It's not life-ending," he said quickly, "but it changes everything. The treatments, the rest, the choices I make now." Her eyes filled with tears. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" He smiled weakly. "Because everyone has pain, Sandra. Mine doesn't need to take space from others." She stepped closer, her voice breaking. "You've been helping everyone else while fighting your own battle?" He nodded slowly. "That's what Michael would have done." A long silence followed. Rain began to fall again, faintly, just like the night he stood under the sky. Sandra couldn't speak. She wanted to say something, anything, but all she could do was hold his hand. For the first time, Keanu didn't hide his pain. He let the silence stretch between them, filled with truth, fear, and something unspoken. The kind of bond that only forms when two souls stop pretending to be strong. As they stood under the streetlight, the raindrops glowed like silver tears. Keanu finally whispered, "I don't know how long I'll keep doing films. But before I stop, I want to make one last thing count. Sandra looked at him, her heart breaking. Then I'll be there, whatever it is. He smiled softly, but behind that smile was a secret plan. One he hadn't told anyone yet. A plan that would turn his quiet pain into something the world would never forget. The next morning, the world on set felt unchanged. But something inside Sandra Bullock was completely different. She moved through her lines mechanically, her mind repeating Keanu's quiet confession. It's early, but it's real. Those words echoed in her heart like a whisper she couldn't silence. She watched him from a distance as he rehearsed. No one else knew, no one suspected. Keanu smiled, cracked light jokes, even helped an extra fix a prop. He looked like the same calm, humble man everyone admired. But Sandra saw the truth hiding behind his eyes. He was running on borrowed strength. After lunch, she found him sitting near the edge of the stage, his legs hanging loosely over the platform, watching the sunlight filter through the dusty air. She sat beside him quietly. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then she asked, "What did you mean when you said you wanted to make one last thing count?" He turned slowly, his gaze steady yet soft. "Something for the people who never get thanked. The crew, the workers, the drivers, the cleaners. People like Michael." "A film?" she asked. He nodded. "But not just any film. Something simple, something real. A story that belongs to them." Sandra smiled sadly. "You always think of others first." Keanu chuckled lightly. "Maybe that's how I survive my own storms." A week later, filming wrapped for the current movie. The crew celebrated with champagne, music, and loud laughter. Keanu stayed at the edge of the crowd, clapping for everyone but never stepping into the spotlight. Sandra stood beside him, her hand resting on his shoulder. "What's next?" she asked. He looked at her with quiet determination. "I've already started writing." The following months were a blur of silence, secrecy, and creation. Keanu disappeared from public events and interviews. Rumors spread. He's taking a break, he's retiring, he's writing something personal. No one knew the truth except Sandra. One afternoon, she received a call. It was Keanu. His voice was calm but slightly weaker. "I need your help," he said. "Come to my studio. There's something I want you to see." When she arrived, the room was filled with papers, sketches, and a small whiteboard covered with ideas. In the center sat a thick script titled "The Quiet Ones." Sandra picked it up and began reading. Within minutes, tears filled her eyes. It was a story about kindness, about people who work in the background, unnoticed, yet hold the world together. The lead character was an old janitor who saves a child without expecting recognition. "This is beautiful," she whispered. "It's for Michael," Keanu said softly, "and for everyone like him. I want to produce it, fund it, and give the earnings to support struggling crew members." Sandra looked at him, emotion flooding her voice. "Then let me be part of it." He shook his head gently. "This is your time to shine in the world's stories, not mine." "Don't you dare say that," she said, her eyes fierce. "We'll make it together." He smiled, the kind of smile that hides both gratitude and surrender. "You're impossible." "No," she said quietly. "Just someone who believes in you." And so the project began. Quietly, away from headlines and studios. Keanu financed it through a private fund, while Sandra gathered a small team of independent filmmakers. They shot scenes in simple locations: a train station, a diner, an old workshop. The story felt real, pure, and deeply human. During one shoot, Keanu fainted for a brief moment. Everyone rushed to him, but he waved them off, insisting he was fine. Sandra stayed beside him, her hands trembling as she helped him sit up. "You can't keep pushing like this," she said. "If I stop now," he whispered, "I might never start again." She wanted to argue, but his eyes, calm and steady, silenced her. Days turned into weeks, and the film neared completion. Every frame carried the weight of something sacred, not fame, not money, but meaning. Keanu directed scenes with quiet precision, often smiling through the pain. Sandra watched him and knew she was witnessing something more than filmmaking. It was a farewell in motion. On the final day of shooting, as the sun set behind the old train yard where the last scene was filmed, Keanu called everyone together. His voice was soft, almost a whisper. "This isn't just a movie," he said. "It's a thank you to the ones who stay unseen." The crew clapped, some with tears in their eyes. Sandra looked at him, her heart breaking and blooming all at once. She knew what this meant. It wasn't just art. It was legacy. Later that night, after everyone left, she found Keanu sitting alone, watching the footage on his laptop. The golden light from the screen illuminated his tired face. "It's done," she whispered. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, and now it's time to let it go." She felt a deep ache in her chest. "What do you mean?" He looked up, smiling faintly. "When the film releases, I'll be somewhere far. I don't want interviews, promotions, or applause. This film belongs to them, not me." "You're disappearing again, aren't you?" she said softly. "Not disappearing," he replied. "Just returning to silence." The room fell quiet. Only the faint hum of the computer filled the air. She wanted to stop him, but she knew Keanu was never someone you could hold back. He lived by his heart, and his heart was already walking toward peace. The next morning, his motorcycle was gone. No message, no goodbye. Just a note left on the desk. Every light fades, but its warmth remains in others. Sandra stood there, the note trembling in her hands, realizing that he had done it again, turned his pain into light, then stepped back into the shadows. But this time, she wasn't going to let that silence stay unbroken. The world soon learned about The Quiet Ones. The small, heartfelt film touched millions. Critics called it a masterpiece of compassion. It won awards at festivals, but Keanu Reeves was nowhere to be seen. His name was on the credits, yet he never appeared in any photo, any interview, or any celebration. Sandra Bullock accepted one of the film's awards on his behalf. Her voice trembled as she said, "This film belongs to the silent hearts Keanu always spoke about. And maybe, just maybe, it belongs to him too." The audience stood in applause, yet her eyes searched the crowd, hoping, praying. Maybe he was there somewhere, watching quietly like he always did. But he wasn't. After the ceremony, she sat alone in her hotel room, the golden trophy on the table beside her. She looked at her phone, scrolling through old messages. The last one from Keanu was simple. "Thank you for believing in something unseen." Weeks passed. She tried calling him many times, but every time, the line rang endlessly. No answer, no text back. It was like he had vanished completely, leaving only traces of his kindness behind. Then one morning, a letter arrived at her doorstep. The handwriting was unmistakable, neat, clean, deliberate. It was from Keanu. She opened it with shaking hands. "Dear Sandra, I didn't disappear. I just needed silence again. The doctors say the treatments are working, but I'm tired. I wanted to see if the world still remembers kindness. And it does, maybe more than ever. That's enough for me now. Don't look for me. Just keep spreading what you already carry, the light we both believe in." With quiet gratitude, Keanu tears filled her eyes as she read the letter again and again. She wanted to be angry, wanted to tell him he didn't have to face anything alone. But then she realized this was how he lived, not out of pride, but peace. Still, she couldn't rest. She needed to see him even once. She spent days tracing his trail. Small donations in his name had started appearing in hospitals, orphanages, and animal shelters. No photos, no press, just quiet transfers. Each one signed only with the letter K. She followed those clues across the city until one afternoon she arrived at a small lakeside cabin in Northern California. She stood there, her heart racing, her eyes scanning the calm water and the wooden porch. And then she saw him. Keanu Reeves sat by the lake, feeding birds with a small bag of crumbs. His hair was longer now, his beard a little grayer, but his smile, soft, peaceful, was exactly the same. When he saw her, he looked both surprised and calm. "You always find me," he said quietly. "You're terrible at hiding," she replied, tears forming in her eyes. They sat together for a long while, the sound of the lake surrounding them. Sandra finally spoke, her voice trembling. "You should have told me sooner," he smiled. You already knew, didn't you? She nodded slowly. Maybe I did. A long silence followed. She watched him toss breadcrumbs into the water, the ripples spreading wide and gentle. It felt symbolic. Every act of kindness he ever gave, still moving outward, touching lives he'd never meet. Why this place? She asked softly. Michael brought me here once, Keanu said. He told me peace isn't found in the noise of life, but in the spaces between it. She looked around. And are you peaceful now? He smiled faintly. More than ever. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in soft orange and pink, Keanu stood up and walked to a small wooden table by the porch. On it lay an unfinished notebook. What's this? She asked. A new project, he said quietly. Letters of light. Stories people send about moments when kindness saved them. I want to publish it for charity. Sandra's eyes softened. Even now you're still giving. He shrugged gently. It's what keeps me alive. She looked at him, tears rolling down her cheeks. You don't realize it, do you? How much you've already changed people. How much you've changed me. Keanu looked at her with calm eyes, the faintest trace of a smile. You changed me too, Sandra. You reminded me that silence isn't emptiness. It's full of meaning if someone's willing to listen. They stood quietly as the wind rustled through the trees. For a moment, it felt like the world had stopped moving. Two friends bound by unspoken love, loss, and gratitude. As darkness fell, Keanu handed her a small envelope. Open this when you're ready, he said. She nodded slowly, her throat tight. And when will I see you again? He looked toward the stars. When you hear silence, you'll know I'm near. The next morning, he was gone again. No note, no goodbye, just the faint scent of coffee and the envelope left behind. Inside was a single sentence written in his neat handwriting. The quiet ones never vanish. They become the peace others find. Sandra held the paper close to her heart, her tears falling freely. She looked out at the lake where he had sat the day before, and she whispered softly, You're still here, Keanu. And somewhere, maybe in the wind that passed through the trees or in the calm ripple of the lake, she felt it. The quiet, steady warmth of his presence. Months passed. Yet Keanu Reeves's absence never truly felt like absence. His silence had become something living, a quiet force that continued to move hearts long after he was gone. The Quiet Ones was now more than a film. It had grown into a movement. Across cities and countries, people began writing to the foundation Keanu had started in Michael's memory. Crew members, janitors, students, nurses, all sharing moments when a small act of kindness changed their lives. Each letter ended with the same words, for the Quiet Ones. Sandra Bullock collected every letter herself. She read them at night when the world slept, words from strangers whose lives had been touched by someone they barely knew. She began organizing them page by page, just like Keanu had dreamed. One day, she found herself sitting in his old lakeside cabin. It was quiet except for the wind brushing the leaves. On the desk still lay the notebook he had started, Letters of Light. She placed the new letters beside it, her hands trembling as she whispered, You kept your promise, Keanu. Now I'll keep mine. For weeks she worked there, editing, compiling, and shaping every story with love. She added a foreword at the beginning, her own message to the readers. This book is not about fame or pain. It's about quiet kindness. It's about people like Keanu Reeves who believe goodness doesn't need an audience. He taught me that silence can heal, and love can live without noise. When the book finally released, it carried no celebrity face, no bold design, just the title Letters of Light written in simple white font on a gray cover. All proceeds went to help underpaid film crew members and struggling families in creative fields. The response was beyond anything Sandra expected. Thousands of readers sent in their own letters, donations, and messages of gratitude. News outlets called it the movement that restored faith in humanity, but Sandra never appeared on camera to speak about it. She wanted it to stay pure, the way Keanu would have wanted. Then one evening, something unexpected happened. While sorting more letters, she found an envelope without a return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, The handwriting was neat, unmistakable. "You did it, Sandra. You gave them hope. I'm proud of you." Her heart stopped. Her fingers trembled as she read the words again. It couldn't be, but deep down she knew. Only he would say it that way. No signature, no explanation. Just gratitude. She stepped outside the cabin, the cold air brushing her face. The lake shimmered in the moonlight, calm and endless. Somewhere in that silence, she felt his presence again, soft, warm, familiar. She whispered into the wind, "You're still teaching me, aren't you?" The next day, she returned to Los Angeles for an award event where Letters of Light had been nominated for a humanitarian honor. She stood on stage, the crowd applauding, the lights bright and blinding. But when she spoke, her voice was gentle, steady. "This isn't my moment. This belongs to someone who believed that silence could change the world." Keanu Reeves taught us that being kind doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be real. The hall fell silent. Even the cameras stopped moving. Sandra looked upward for a brief moment, not to the ceiling, but to the unseen presence she felt watching. And in that silence, she smiled. The same soft smile Keanu once had, after the ceremony. She went to the rooftop of the building, the city lights stretching endlessly below. She took out her phone and opened the last message he ever sent her. "Thank you for believing in something unseen," she whispered back softly. "It wasn't unseen, Keanu. It was you." A gentle breeze moved through the night, brushing against her hair, almost like an invisible hand passing by. She closed her eyes, feeling peace wash over her. Years later, Letters of Light became part of school programs, inspiring millions of students to practice quiet kindness. A small scholarship was founded under Keanu's name, the Reeves Foundation for Silent Hearts. And every year, Sandra would visit the lake, bringing with her a white flower, just like the one he once left for Michael. She'd place it on the water, watch it float away, and whisper, "You kept your promise." And sometimes, when the water shimmered just right, she could almost see him sitting there, calm, smiling, feeding the birds again, not gone, just silent, still teaching the world how to be kind without needing to be seen.